Hello, my name is Truly Rose, and the subject that I chose for disability is Down syndrome. What exactly is Down syndrome? Each person has 21 pairs of chromosomes in every cell in your body. For each pair, you get one chromosome from your mother and one from your father. Babies born with Down syndrome have an extra copy of chromosome called chromosome 21. This extra copy changes the way the brain and body develop. We don't know for sure why Down syndrome happens, but we do know that the later in life you choose to conceive a child as a woman gives you a higher risk for having a child that is affected by Down syndrome. For example, at 25, a mother has the chance of conceiving a child with Down syndrome 1 in 1,340. By the age of 35, the chances are 1 in 353. By 45, the chances are 1 in 35. There are 3 kinds of Down syndrome. Trisomy 21, this is the most common kind. About 95% of people with Down syndrome have this condition. The condition is the child is born with 3 copies of chromosome 21 instead of 2. Another type of Down syndrome is mosaic Down syndrome. People with this condition have some cells that have 3 copies of chromosome 21, but other cells have the usual 2 copies. Mosaic Down syndrome is very rare. People with mosaic Down syndrome may have fewer characteristics of Down syndrome because they have some cells with 2 copies of chromosome 21. Translocation Down syndrome. This condition happens when a person has 2 copies of chromosome 21 plus an extra part or whole chromosome that attaches to one of the chromosome 21. This condition is very rare and it is thought to be hereditary, which means it can be passed on from parent to child. Alright, persons with Down syndrome may have distinct physical characteristics, including facial features. From birth, most babies with Down syndrome have flattened faces, flattened noses, almond-shaped eyes that slant upward, small mouths, tongues that may stick out, small tiny mouths, white spots on the iris. Some other physical characteristics: short necks, small hands and feet, also may have a single line across the center of the palm of their hand or small pinky fingers that curl up towards the thumb. Alright, some of the other physical characteristics and issues that a person with Down syndrome may face throughout their life: low muscle tone, loose joints, poor head control. They may be shorter in general, have been born with congenital heart defects or have them later on in life, hearing loss from birth or later on in life. Children born with Down syndrome may also have trouble with physical development as far as walking and hand-eye coordination, also learning development, mostly with communication, understanding social cues, vision problems, blood disorders, cancer, such as leukemia, dental issues due to the fact that children born with Down syndrome develop teeth at a slower rate. Some of the organizations and policies that have been developed to help persons with Down syndrome and educate the community are the NDSS, National Advocacy and Policy Centers, supports the mission of NDSS to be leading human rights in the community for all individuals with Down syndrome by advocating for federal, state, and local policies that positively impact persons with disability of Down syndrome across the country in the United States. They're accomplishing this by working with the federal and Congress to develop and approve laws, regulations, and other policies by executing a comprehensive legislative agenda supporting people with Down syndrome. Also, the NDSS trains and educates parents, self-advocates, and other advocates on local, state, and national levels to positively impact the lives of people living with Down syndrome. Organizations and participants of National Support Coalition help advance the Down syndrome legislative agenda in Washington. They do this by leading state-of-the-art national and state advocacy programs. Social workers can provide families dealing with the diagnosis of Down syndrome in several ways. They often provide emotional support, parents who are trying to cope with the news. Social workers can assist parents in identifying strategies to manage stress and deal with their emotions. They can also teach parents about the services, resources that are available to children with Down syndrome. Often, social workers assist parents with understanding treatment needs, types of professionals that they may need to address medical, learning disabilities, and developmental delays for their child. So social workers also provide information on how parents can seek help for practical needs such as financial problems that they may arise as a result of caring for a child with extra medical needs. A social worker may assist by helping families apply for assistance by linking parents to available agencies and organizations. One of the main accommodations of a social worker may need is patience, meeting your clients where they are, because sometimes you will have a client that is 70% self-sufficient with Down syndrome, and you may need to directly communicate with that client instead of having to go through their court-appointed guardian. Also, you need to meet the client where they are as far as physically and intellectually. So sometimes a social worker may need to break down a goal plan to someone that is developmentally delayed that suffers from Down syndrome into terms that they can understand and that they feel comfortable with. Also, the family too. A lot of families are not familiar with a lot of medical terms that are associated with Down syndrome, and knowledge is power. People feel more comfortable knowing exactly what is happening rather than them being blindsided and not fully understanding the circumstance. There are many organizations that help people with Down syndrome in Texas, such as the Down Syndrome Buds, Better Understanding of Down Syndrome, Down Syndrome by the Border, Down Syndrome Association of Brazos Valley, Down Syndrome Association of Central Texas, Down Syndrome League of Victoria, Heart of Down Syndrome Network. Thank you for learning a little bit about Down syndrome with me.